how should I say, they don't, they're afraid to share that, things are not natural. So I think that the more natural we are, it's a better. And in some of my classes, like when you give a class, you tend to not want to be vulnerable, right? Nobody wants to be vulnerable or show them being vulnerable in front of others. But I tend to actually want to, share, things that I'm vulnerable at, because I think it's important for people to know that no one is perfect. No, I'm not perfect, even though I'm a rabbi, and that, and then people have easier time, I think, seeing and realizing that if something is not perfect about them, they could share it. It's okay to share. It's okay to talk about these things that are not perfect in our life. So, so this was just an introduction. But last week we talked about. So, anyways, feel free to interject with questions, with thoughts. 100%. It doesn't have to be a lecture. It could be a interaction with each other.
Is my ambient noise too problematic?
No, you're good.
No, and if you are concerned with you can always mute yourself if you like. But if it's a problem, we'll let you know. But you don't have to. I said, the more natural we are, seeing each other, hearing each other, if there's a problem, we will let you know. So we talked about our refining ourselves and working on ourselves. How becoming better, becoming different. And gonna get a little bit noisy for just a minute. I'm connecting to my computer, and then it's gonna work. A second, I'm going to disconnect it for a second. I'll be right back. Okay, you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So yeah. Hello?
Yep.
We talk about how when we react to certain events in life, certain things that are happening in our life, that we should react to them in a way that realizing that everything is accordance with our mission in the world, our mission in life. And something that really struck me, and a lot of times really, it's in my mind a lot, this idea that, God put us in certain places, in certain, family-wise, work-wise, that, that children, God give us the children, and put us in the families and in the workplaces, and bring us to the circumstances that we need to have in life that is designated for us to work on ourselves to fulfill our mission in life. And I'm talking about our mission, I'm saying mission as far as mission in time and mission in place, where we are, the time we are, the places we are, the people that we meet. And if we dislike this and respond to the situation, like say, like somebody could be very frustrated with this child and said, why did God give me this child? I got so many challenges with this child. What's going on? Like, why is it happening to me? Like, what? And he gets very upset and very frustrated. Then you realize that something must be wrong here with how do we respond to this, because God brought me here for a reason, and this interaction because God wanted me to work on myself. And how do I respond? That's what we talked about last week. The end of the class was saying that when we talk about defining our characters, becoming better,
is the most important thing is realizing that everything that we respond to, we want to know how does it has to do with my mission in life, with why God put me here, why God put me in this situation. And sometimes God gives people, children, or parents, or spouses, that they have to, it's certain, and they start to see, to look into the spouse. They start to look into their, to their child, and they start to see things they don't like. And these are the things they don't like about themselves. These are the things we don't like about ourselves. And that's why we kind of seeing this in our spouse, we're seeing this in our children, because God gave us this spouse, God gave us these children to help us work on the things that we need to be working on the mission of our soul, the mission of who we are as human beings, refining our characters, becoming better. So once we realize that, hey, if I meet my friend today and my friend is going to curse me out, or my spouse is going to say something that I don't like to hear, and my child is going to need more attention than I would like to give him, and I get upset with it because I want more time to work, I want more time to do other things in my life, then realize perhaps the reason why this is coming in your life, because maybe God gives us the message that we need to work less and spend more time with the family. Maybe God gives us the message that we need to, be less angry and more patient, and so on and so forth. So once we understand that this is a godly mission, and we start looking at it this way at all the events, people, places that we find ourselves in life, then it's easier to respond differently. Then we look at everything in a different way. Especially as Kabbalah explains that people are what I was going to say, that people are coming here to this life. Hashem sent us, and the mission is to, fix the world and fix ourselves. And there's a certain particular mission connected with each soul. The time and space where the person may be is connected with his soul. And William, I'm going to put this on. I'm going to put this on mute. If you want to talk, unmute yourself, okay? So, so people are having that mission that is connected with their time and space, and they're coming into certain time, certain space to fulfill this mission. So instead of being angry, Kabbalah talks about how God's involved with every aspect of the world, and it gives life. Every moment in the world, it gives life to. It revives the world every second. So nothing comes into our life without God wanted to come. Nothing happening in our world without God wanted it to happen. So if a friend tells us something we don't like to hear, that meant to be by God. That came to by God. So once we have that foundation, it's easier for us to work on ourselves. So now this is the time of the counting of the Omer that we're talking about our characters and what defines us, who we are as people, as human beings, and work to refine ourselves. So we're going to talk about some of the faculties that are it's who we are. Kabbalah teaches about our inner self, who we are as people, and once we understand better who we are with people, as people, we'll be able to know sort of which button to push at which time to respond differently to the events. We'll have to know what do I have to access right now? Which button do I need to press right now to respond differently? For example, talking about some people are very kind and are too kind and don't know how to say no. So that's because they have too much chesed. We're going to talk about chesed, kindness. And some people, they are too restricted and are not open to others and are not giving and not outgoing. And they have to work and, you know, and getting more chesed into them, more kindness into them. So there are different attributes that define who we are that we can decide to be differently. We have the ability to be differently. Okay, so the Kabbalah discusses about how, you know, every there is certain attributes, and there are 7 in essence, 7 emotions, 7 type of emotions that drive our emotions. Last week we talked about the intellect. Everything has been derived from the intellect, but it's really coming from our, you know, it's really the emotions where we observe everything inside, internally. That's how determines how we're going to think, what we're going to do. I mean, what we're going to say, what we're going to do. And we talked about how God creates the man. The structure of man is the same as the structure of the world. So the way God created the world, He created man. So if we want to understand better about man, we'll be able to understand better. We have to see how God created the world, which attribute did He use, and know the same attribute exists within us. So the first 2 attributes we're going to talk about is chesed and gvura. Kindness, and we call it severity, call it strict judgment, or whatever way you want to call it. The function of chesed, the function of kindness, is looking at everything in a positive way. You know, I have a person who looks at everybody positively, everybody is nice, everybody is good, you know, look at a very positive way, and therefore everybody's worthy of receiving. Everybody's, you know, everybody needs to get. Everybody's able to get. I can give everybody because everybody's good. The world is good. People are good. That's chesed. That's where they find kindness. Then we have the attribute of severity, of strict judgment. Severity looks more at people, examine people in a very, very careful way, in a very, very strict way. So it looks at the person and says, well, you're going to get the reward if you particularly did what you did with the right intention, and everything has to be right and perfect about what you did, then you deserve it. But if you did something not good, or if you didn't have the right intention, or you're not perfect, you're not worthy of the reward. So, for example, the attribute of kindness comes to God and said, give blessing to the world, give blessing to everybody, bestow your blessing. Everybody's good. We're looking at it from like godly perspective, that the world is insignificant. The world is, what is the world? So everybody's good. So let's give. Comes the attribute of strict judgment and said, you know, this lady that prayed to you, that davened to you, God, she didn't really, she davened because she needed something from you. That's why she came to the synagogue to the prayers, to the services, because she needs a blessing in her life. So she's not worthy of the reward because she's not really here for the right reason. Well, Chesed is going to say, she's here, she deserves the reward. She's good. So the way the Gvura look, the way this severity, the attribute of severity looks, it looks at things and it says, you know, it looks from down below. It looks to the people. The people are low. People are negative. People are not good. There's so many, you know. It looks into what's happening here below, rather than looking from above, rather than looking from heaven and saying everybody is good. It starts looking into the deep. Listen, this person is not good, and that person looks into the very minute details to say what person is unworthy of receiving God's blessings. we're talking about Yitzchak and Esau, Isaac. You had a son Esau and a son Yaakov. And Yaakov was good and Esau was not. But it says that Yitzchak loved Esau. And the question comes, why did Yitzchak love Esau? What did he have about Esau that he loved him? After all, he was only cheating Yitzchak. He was hiding from Yitzchak who he was, and he was playing like he was good, but he wasn't really good. So the explanation Kabbalah gives that Yitzchak looked in Chassidus, teaching of Chassidus, explained that the way Yitzchak looked at Esau, he looked at him from on his origin, he looked at his soul, and he realized his soul comes from a very high place. It's too much energy, it's not energy, it's how and he realized the potential that Yitzchak, that Isaac had. So even though he was not good, but he said, this kid has so much potential, you got to do something with this potential. Let's give him, let's just bestow upon him and just give him whatever we can give, bestow upon him blessing. That's why he wanted to bless him. And the truth is that Esau's soul was from a very high level, but there was too much energies, and he couldn't bring all these energies into action. Like some people are full of good intention, but they're not able to actualize them because they're not able to take these great energies and bring them into specific, condense them into effective vessels. We're talking about in the Talmud about the house study of Hillel and the house study of Shammai, and Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, and great students, great disciples, great rabbis, holy rabbis, who were in the synagogue learning Torah and and issuing laws to the Jewish people at the time, what needs to be done. That's all part of the oral Torah, the Mishnah, and the study house of Shammai always were very strict. They look to what else could they forbid people, what else is unpermissible, because they look at it in a way of severity, of strict judgment, of their soul was from their source. They had much more of the severity of this judgment. So they look to take things, and instead of, let's say, instead of say this is allowed, you could use it, you could elevate it, you could use it for God, they said restricted, you can't use it. But one would come and say, don't use the computer, don't use the internet, there are bad things on it. It's not allowed. Come down, study Hillel, and says, no, let's look how we could use its potential to good. So that's the difference between Chesed and Gevurah. There's actually a story that one time the house study of, and typically most laws, the ruling was always like Hillel, because they were always the majority, and that's the way you follow. God gave us a clear instructions to follow the majority, and if you exercise your will to do what God wants, the way God wants it, and you come and bring interpretation that is based on the Torah and on the rules and the principles that God gave, you are able to come out. The laws that you come out with become God's laws. You gotta have the credential, the right credential. You're gonna be the right level, and you have to know you're not contradicting something else in Torah. So typically, all the laws would pass like the house study of Hillel. Came one day that some of the house study of Hillel was sick, came down with a virus, and the house study of Shammai were the majority on that day. And that day they passed many laws. So that day was a very difficult and challenging day for the Jewish people, because they passed many laws that were very strict for the Jewish people, made it very difficult and challenging for the Jewish people. So So basically, the reason why one was stringent and one was lenient because one was more kind in essence and one was more, strict. Question is, why is it that chesed, that look at it, why is kindness look at it from the way that everybody is, everybody's good and everybody's worthy, look at it from above, a general overview, while strict judgment, the Gvura is looking at it from the perspective here below, that looking into the details and examine it in such a strict way. So we have that really is going to require understanding what is Gvura, what is this strict judgment. And strict judgment, Gevura, the word Gevura in Hebrew comes from the word Gibor, which is strength. So it's not a restriction, but it's strength. So why, as a result of strength, we see a restriction? What's the point? If it's really strength is giving, to be strong, mighty, you have more, you give more. So the reason why the Gevura is restriction, the strict judgment is restriction, is not because it doesn't want to give. Because the people, somebody doesn't want to give, that's unholy. So it's not that it doesn't want to give, but it examines the receiver. Who is the receiver on the other end? Is the receiver worthy of getting, and is the receiver capable of getting? For example, I'll ask you a question. You have a person that is extrovert. He goes out, he talks to people, he shares things about what happens in life, what happens in the world, and he talks to everybody. He's very friendly and he's very good. Okay? That person, is he a giver? And you unmute, William. Is that person a giver? Is that person a true giver, and that's why he's like sharing with everybody and talking to everybody? What do you think? Is he a true giver? Levi?
It's not that the person, this is Robert, it's not that the person is a giver, it's that it's in their nature. Some people are naturally extroverts and some people are naturally introverts.
Exactly. So, and when you have a person who's like an introvert, and he doesn't give, or he doesn't share necessarily everything, that means that he doesn't know how to give, he doesn't want to give.
No, again, you do within your capacity.
Right. I remember that I was in, my father-in-law is here. I remember I was in the funeral of our grandfather, Bert. And one of the things that the rabbi at the funeral said about him, that he didn't speak much, but he knew where to speak. And when it's needed to speak, he knows what to say. But so it's not that a person doesn't want to give, but a person is examining who is the receiver on the other end. Is there a receiver? Is there somebody capable really of receiving? I'm going to give, but I'm going to give when there is somebody on the other end who really knows how to receive. It's very easy to be an extrovert and to talk and to share. But are you really talking things that are deep from inside you? No, you're just sharing. You're talking. To share things, make yourself vulnerable, like we said, to talk about things that are really bothering you, really in your mind, that takes more strength to do. That's why the Mishnah says in Ethics of the Father that we study in these few weeks, "Aseh lecha rav ukneh lecha chaver." Make yourself a rabbi, a mentor, and ukneh lecha chaver, and acquire yourself a friend. Acquire. it takes time, it takes energy to acquire a friend, a true friend, a mentor, someone you could share the things that are deeply inside you. You know, you may see an extra, said, oh, this person, no problem. You could meet a friend and you could talk to him about what's bothering him. But he's not really talking to him about truly what is inside the depth of his soul. It's very external. So chesed, kindness, you know, an extrovert is very external giving. And that's why he gives. Gevura, strict judgment, is not wanting to give, because we're talking about the attributes, the way they are used to serve God. So they're not worthy of giving. They're not wanting to give. They give, but they want to give. It takes deep strength from deep inside ourselves to share. And that takes strength. That's why Gevura is. And it's a deeper influence. I want to influence, but I want to influence the people that are worthy, the people that are able to. And that's why chesed, that's the difference in chesed and gevura, kindness and severity. Chesed, you know, looks from her to her friend. Look, it doesn't, from the perspective of chesed, you know, chesed has this natural feeling, natural to connect, to share, to talk. It doesn't make a difference who is the receiver. It doesn't care about who gets. And it has a feel to give. It has this natural inclination, feeling to give, to share, and it doesn't make a difference who is in the other end, who is the receiver. So chesed, you know, chesed look from above downward, look from her perspective. I have the need to give. And gevura, severity, in the other end, is looking first down here, looks who is the receiver. Is he or she worthy of getting? And only then it comes to give. But when it gives in a very deep place. But that's why you have restriction. Restriction comes because not everybody's worthy of giving. And that's, we call it in Kabbalah, chesed is long and gevura is short. And because chesed gives everybody, it goes to very far places, even the people that are unworthy, so it's long. Gevura, strict judgment, it only gives people that are worthy of receiving, so it's short. It's only able to give to the people that are worthy of getting. So typically what happens is, some points in our life, we have to exercise chesed, we have to exercise giving. At some point, we have to exercise restriction. For example, eliminating distractions, creating boundaries. That's all comes from gevura. Chesed, there's no boundaries. It gives, it takes, and make himself available to everybody, like we talked about last week. Everybody gets, even, and it's at the cost of what the person needs to pay, needs to sacrifice. Gevura, restriction is, everything in a balance. So you need a little bit of each. And at some point, we need more chesed in life to work on ourselves to give, and other times we need to work on ourselves to restrict. Same thing with our children. Then come third attribute, and we'll conclude with that. Next week, we're going to talk about the other four. Because these are the inner part of the midot. This is what really create our emotions, our faculties, who we are. The rest are more external ones. So the rest are serving these three. Tiferet is the one that comes after chesed and gevura. And it's called an intermediate one. It stands in between the two. Wait 1 second. Take it, you on?
Yeah.
I have two of my kids doing schooling, and behind me there, behind the skirt, and one to the right, one to the left. So I also have to make sure to manage that they are, doing what they're supposed to be doing. So Tiferet, the third attribute, beauty, the intermediate one. It's called beauty because it balances between the two. It's not just a combination of the two, it's more than a combination of the two. It balances in between the two, but it has a lot of its own. What does it mean? While the attribute of chesed, kindness, and the attribute of gevurah, of judgment, both agree that if somebody is worthy of getting, he should be getting. Chesed always wants to give, and gevurah, strict judgment, wants to give when the person is worthy. So if a person is worthy, if they both agree that he should get, that person should get, the only argument between them is who is worthy. Chesed said everybody's worthy. You look from above and everybody's worthy. And gevurah, severity, says there's a lot of people unworthy. But both of these attributes are lacking something. Chesed, what happens if you give? If you give children everything they want, what happens? Is that a good thing?
Well, they take advantage and they get spoiled and you get taken advantage of.
Correct. So giving always is not necessarily a good thing, because sometimes by giving, you're giving somebody who's not worthy of giving, and then they take advantage, like you said, wrong. And however, on the other hand, gevurah, the other attributes, that somebody sometimes prevent giving from children that are worthy of giving. Because they look into examining all details, yes, but he didn't do this, he didn't do this, she didn't do that, he didn't really meant to do it, and they're looking into all the details, and the person who is worthy of receiving is not receiving. But they are both lacking. Chesed and gevurah are both lacking. And Tiferet, beauty, looks at the end result. And the end result, if the end result is going to be positive, then beauty will support the giving. Beauty will say, give. Even if the receiver is unworthy of getting. So that's what, why? Because it's going to say, there could be a situation where even chesed and gevurah, they both will agree that the person, the receiver, is worthy of receiving. But the beauty will say, don't give, because if you give to the person, you're going to hurt them. The person, because the end result is that it's not going to be good for them. For example, let's say, a child in a certain age that you think you should not have smartphone. Chesed and gevurah said, Chesed says, give him. Gevurah said, he's a good child. Give it to him. He's worthy of getting it. Comes Tiferet and says, wait a second. If you give it to him, yes, he's good, but the end result will not be good if he's getting it. So it may not be good for him. So don't give. More particularly from example from your world, Robert, is when you're talking about case in a court. When you go to court, when you're in court and the judge is looking at the situation and the advocate, Chesed, said, give, bestow, keep on giving. And gevurah says, I mean, like the advocate said he's good, he's nice, judge him favorably. And the Gevurah said, no, he's not good. They're not worthy. They shouldn't be getting, and they should be getting punished, should be getting years in prison, and should be deterred not to do what he did anymore. And that. So, comes Gevurah. I mean, because Gevurah looks at the non-good in a person, they're very strict with the person. The advocate looks at all the good. Comes time to give the actual punishment, the actual sentence to the person. Here comes beauty. Beauty says, all we're looking is for correction. We're looking to correct what a person is. In an ideal world, obviously, not necessarily that it works exactly today in the world of law, but
Rabbi, I have to run a little early today. I'm sorry.
So, but
You
that's
take care.
Sure, take care. All the best. So that's the way you're looking at it, is what's good for the person, what is going to work out of the person, and if the person is going to end up being in prison, it's going to be bad for them. Then it's not good. Then let's not give him so many years in prison. Let's give him less years in prison. Let's give him some punishment that will deter him, like community service, and do something which is productive. So it balances between the kindness, the chesed, and the gevurah, the giving and restricting. Any questions? Any thoughts?
I had to make that right turn. So are you?
Give me just
were
a
you
quick
suggesting-
second. So
or did I miss this?
just a quick second. One quick second. Are you going to start?
Yeah. Yes. Hello?
Are you start?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get it. We have to do touch.
1:30?
Leave me on. Leave me.
Okay.
Keep it.
Sorry. So
Okay.
What I was saying is, so the strict judgment, in terms, I mean, you're not suggesting, or did I miss something? You're not suggesting that we're the ones who should be determining whether or not someone is worthy of kindness,
Yeah.
or are you?
it's in your own world. Yes, in your own, when it comes to your own children, when it comes to, then yes. When it comes to dealing with your own kids, you have to decide whether to be kind to them, whether to give, whether to restrict, whether it's money, whether it's whatever it is.
Right, but that's based on sort of simple sort of cause and effect,
Right. So you have to determine where to exercise to be kind, to be giving, and where to exercise a restriction, where to say, I'm not available for you right now. Like my assistant told me the other day, because she has to do some work from home. She said, I went to my child and I told him, listen, this is the time I need to be focused on work. You can't bother me during this time. And you're not going to be bothering me this time. Then when I'm done, I'll be available to you. So, but right now, you have to restrict. Sometimes you have to turn off your cell phone. So you have to restrict. Sometimes it's restriction to yourself, creating boundaries yourself. Sometimes it's restriction and creating boundaries with others.
Right. I mean, I understand that, and maybe I just didn't understand the original point, or didn't. But when you say, maybe it's just a function of the words, the terms we're using. I'm just understanding them differently. But when you say being worthy of kindness, I mean, I translate that to somehow me sitting in judgment of whether someone's character is, judging someone's character, whether, quote, literally they are worthy of kindness. I mean, I don't see myself as being in a position to make that sort of determination.
I mean, worthy, I guess you say is worthy is whether they need that kindness from you, whether you giving them will do good for them. Maybe that's a better word than worthy.
Right. Well, that's the beauty. That's the beauty
worthy,
part.
are worthy of God, are worthy of God's kindness. We're talking about God's judging the world. Then the attribute of kindness says give. The attribute of judgment says don't give, restrict. Don't give that person. He's not worthy of your kindness, God.
Still there.
So both of these attributes are playing,
Still there.
playing a role, and God has to decide the person is worthy or not. Same thing with the judge. He has to decide is the person worthy of that kindness, or is it good for him? Is not unworthy. So you have two attributes that play a role here, to give or to restrict,
Right.
to punish or not. And sometimes you need to give, sometimes you need to restrict, sometimes you need to punish, sometimes punishment won't help. So you need the tiferet, you need the beauty, you need that result.
So how is a person to determine whether, how do I know for myself whether the way I'm treating someone is because the situation demands an unkindness, to put it a certain way, because whether their behavior or the circumstances, or because it would ultimately not be good for them, therefore I have to apply an unkindness, as opposed to the kindness without reservation. How do I know that I'm not simply being mean? I mean, how do I know that I'm not the one who's exhibiting, I want to stick them, as opposed to trying to make a judgment?
Well, that's a very good question, William. That's God gave us all good inclination, evil inclination. And sometimes we have a good voice, sometimes we have a not good voice. So you're asking a very good question. How do I know that the voice is the voice of the good voice? So a lot of this is determined by what the end result will be. For example, Hasidus gives a very good example of, and I use it a lot in my life. When you have doubts and questions between you want to do something, and you want to do something good, and then you have a second thought that says, thought there's something better that you need to be doing. So why don't you do this better thing? So Hasidus give a very clear ruling there and says, you determine this by going, what's your first voice tell you? The first voice tell you to do something good, even if the second voice comes to you to do something better, but it's coming to take you away from the first good thing you wanted to do, that means your evil inclination is tricking you. And there's this famous story with a very famous Rabbi Nachum of Chernobyl, who one time a person, he was a great rabbi, and people came to him and asked for blessing, and people would give him would support other people, and give him money to give other people, and some money to support his own, his own family, his own operation, his own synagogue. And he one time asked and said, a person came to him and gave him 300 gold coins. A person once came to him and said, I want to give you, I give him 300 gold coins. And he left. Then another person came in after him, and that person told him, I need help to marry off my daughter and to pay my rent. If I'm not going to pay my rent, they're going to throw me out the house. And if I'm not going to, give my daughter the money for the wedding, then the groom is going to cancel this engagement. And if I'm not going to do this, I need money for this and for that, and my teachers, the children's teacher is going to resign if I don't pay him. And so the rabbi asked him how much you need. He said, I need 300 golden coins will solve all the problems. So the rabbi said, I have a good thing here. I just said somebody came and gave me 300 golden coins. I should give it to him and help him out. But then a second thought entered his mind and said to him, why help one person and solve all these problems? Take the money, divide it to 5 different people, help yourself and 2 other people.
I'm losing this sound. I heard it's a good. I heard it's a good thing. It just so happens we happen to have 300 people, but I didn't hear anything after that.
Yeah, it said that your connection is low. I don't know if you're on a Wi-Fi or a cell phone connection.
I'm not hearing you at all. I'm sorry. I'm not hearing you at all. But I tell you what, the Zooms, I think, froze.
I'll give you the.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my just frozen.
I'll see a second. Maya, can you send me the? Maya, can you send me the phone number to send?
Pretty good. But I like it's good. I'll lunch and learn way. I do it. So, well, you're still all frozen. I appreciate it, Rabbi.
Maya is gonna send.
We'll see you again soon.
Now I hear you. Can you hear me now? Okay. Anyway, I'm just going to answer the question for those that are listening and tuning in on Facebook Live. That person said that the rabbi said, why should I give him the, why should I give him all the money? Make a show with 4 or 5 other people, and so the rabbi didn't know what's the right thing to do. So and so the rabbi said to himself, I'm just trying to get this person on the phone. Okay, I'm just going to finish up this so you can hear that, okay?
Yeah.
So the rabbi said, if I give the money in to this guy, I'm helping one person solve all his problems. Or I give the money in to 5, share it with 5 people, maybe I just give it to 5, I'll help 4 or 5 people. So myself and 4 others, including this guy. And he wasn't sure what's the right thing to do, like you're asking, to give or not to give the all 300 or not. What thoughts comes from the good inclination, what thoughts comes from the non-good inclination, the evil, what we call them, evil inclination. So the rabbi thought to himself and said, if the thought to give 5 other people would be a good thought, but would come, it's a good thought, but if it would come from the good inclination, why didn't I get this thought right away? So that tells me that, that I need to, that I need to give that person all the money, because this is the first thought that enters my mind. But the evil inclination wants me to do something else, which is better to avoid me doing the good thing. So it tells me, comes up with a better thought. Okay, but the better thought just to take me away, turn me away from helping that person who needs help. Because he was the first guy who came and said he needs help, so let me help him out. So a lot of times, when it's not so clear and there's doubt, both things are good. Hasidus given advice of saying, look at the end result. If the second thought comes to take you away from doing something good, that the second thought is coming from the evil inclination. So you look at what's good, and you wanted to do something good, and you had it in mind. Go ahead and do it. Don't listen to the second thought. And a lot of times we have it in our life, where we're not so sure whether what we want to do is good. One thing we want to do is good, and something else we want to do is better. So sometimes it's easier to understand, like if your child asks you for something that is not good for them, then it's easy to say no, it's not a good thing. Other times you're not so sure, so you have to think, and we have to use our mind and when we're not so sure and we have some doubts. That's why the Mishnah says, make yourself a mentor. Sometimes if certain things in our life that are serious, and then we need to consult with a mentor. So, but other than that, God gave us a mind to exercise our thoughts and to try to think at which point we have to give, at which point we have to restrict.
So are you saying that outcome is more important than intent?
The what?
That the outcome is more important than your intent?
The outcome is super important. The outcome is super important, yes. Sometimes the intent doesn't matter, like the saying, the way to, etc., go through many intentions. So the outcome is the most important. Is what's the outcome? The outcome will be good, yes.
So I oftentimes, and this is something that I've especially felt recently in the last year or so, but I oftentimes find myself like being a nice guy. I'm trying to do the right thing. I give an inch, people take a mile. I feel taken advantage of a lot. Now I don't let that stop me from. I work very hard to not let that hurt my heart. Okay, but I still feel taken advantage of.
It's good, it's good you're telling this to a rabbi, because then I know, you should never tell this to a rabbi, because I'm going to ask you for a lot of things.
That's like, one time I said to, I worked with an attorney on something, and one time I said, yeah, but it's the principle of the thing, and he said, never say that to an attorney. Because you'll find yourself spending a lot of money.
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true. So, yes, the answer is you have to really, some people have to exercise more restrictions, and because they naturally more intend to give and have a hard time to say no. And some people have to, I tell you, when I ask you to come to Shul on Shabbos, that's where you always say yes. When I ask you to do a mitzvah, that's when you always says yes. And that's when it's good to have a hard time saying no. When, someone asks you to do something that takes you away from doing a mitzvah, from doing something good to help another person, then it's not good to say yes. Sometimes we have to say no to our cell phones, no to distractions, no to, everybody has, Hashem give everybody the characters that knows it's for them to work on. So we have to exercise more gevurah, more, strict judgment. So just you have to be aware of that. The thing you have to be aware. I need to apply more, strength into saying no at the times where I need to say no, and you can have to use your own judgment. Where is the time to say no? As someone once said, it's not who you're saying yes to. It's not that you have, you can't say no. It's think about it. Who you're saying no to. Are you saying by saying yes to one person, being a yes man, and saying yes to one person? Are you saying no? Who else are you saying no to? You're saying no to yourself. You're going to be losing after. Are you saying no to your family? You're saying no to your work. Saying no to God. That should be the first thing, obviously, like you talked about. So you have to ask yourself the question: who am I saying no to by saying yes? So it's not so much as saying yes, but by saying yes to me, staying late to work, I'm basically saying no to my family. So it's looking at that way. It kind of helps to to understand and put things in perspective, and have an easier time saying, when you want to say yes to someone, ask yourself a question: who are you saying no to?
Yeah.
All right.
That's a very good way to look at it. I have not looked at it like that. It's like you say, it's not so much it's not what I'm saying yes to, or what I'm saying yes to, or what I'm saying no to, but I say yes.
Good. All right, so we got some material, we got some homework to do until next week.
Okay.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. It's all going to be available on Facebook, also the recording, and I'm going to ask, might also put it on Spotify as well.
Okay.
Thanks, man.
All right. Very good. All right.
Maya, you could end the recording, but if you could stay on a second, that would be good. Just let me know that you